Hello everybody and welcome once again to my channel. I've been getting lots of questions from you all about aromatherapy in particular. So I thought I'd take the opportunity just to chat to you, to share the knowledge that I'm rediscovering through my studies, or revisiting my studies that I did years ago. It took me a very long time to get to grips with all the different aspects of aromatherapy because it's such a vast and fascinating subject. And I can see from a lot of the questions that I'm getting that people find it very informative to have that extra bit of information that we're getting alongside the massage and the blending of the oils. People are finding it informative. So I thought what I'd do is read through some of my old notes, get my fascination back with aromatherapy, and actually share that experience with you as well. It was one of the most fascinating treatments to do, and actually I thought when I studied it that the background and the way that it came about and the different aspects and the complexities of aromatherapy were actually sometimes just as interesting as actually doing the massage. So I thought I'd actually share some of that with you today. What I thought we would start with is just rediscovering a little bit about the history of aromatherapy. So before I get into some wonderful old tools that I have from my study days. Can you believe this? And I'll show you these because I found them the other day and it was absolutely fascinating. It actually brought tears to my eyes because I always associate it with actually studying with a group of people who shared that enthusiasm for aromatherapy, and it just brought memories back to me, as did looking at some of the oils and having them in the right order, and it was all coming back to me. So I thought I'd start at the very beginning with a little bit of the history, and I actually found my old student notes where I had to put together an introduction to aromatherapy, and I even found up in the loft, goodness how long it's been up there, what was my Bible at the time, which is, you can see it's a good old, very thick textbook. And I eventually probably read virtually every page in this book because it covers all of the therapies that we had to study. And I took my time studying because I was working full time and I wanted to change my career at that time. So I studied very slowly. I started off with beauty treatments and then I did Indian head massage, loved that, but loved the oil side even more. I then went on to do aromatherapy and really found my niche there because I just loved and was fascinated with how this can really help people to heal, help them feel better about themselves. And that was fascinating. So it's been really quite a luxury for me going back and finding all this information, and hopefully I can share some of it with you. So going back to looking at an introduction to aromatherapy, and I'm actually going to keep my notes here just in case because a lot of it I can remember to this day, and I mean you are talking sort of 12-15 years ago on some of these treatments, so I do have to jog my memory slightly. And obviously I'm a lot older, I probably didn't need glasses then, but I do need glasses now. So one of the first things that I did remember is how long ago the first evidence of aromatherapy being used was, and it's going back to ancient Egyptian and Chinese times. So absolutely fascinating. These aromatic plants that were discovered thousands of years ago were put into practice to be used for healing purposes, which was absolutely incredible. So I just got to check the date on this. So the record of the use of herbs in a medicinal way is way back 2800 BC. So that's a long time ago. So obviously times have changed. It went from the ancient Egyptians to the Greeks and Romans, a little bit further along, 425 BC. I clearly researched this in a great deal of detail at the time. And that was used in particular by the Romans. I remember coming across the whole section about the Romans using it to heal battle wounds from fighting. And then eventually, obviously with the invention of alchemy and chemistry, it brought us closer to the current days. So the next big section in terms of the historical side of aromatherapy was in 1920 by a French cosmetic chemist, and apologies to any French speakers, I will try and say this name correctly, René Gattefossé, and also Dr. Jean Valnay, or Valnay could be, and they progressed this experimentation into using oils as cosmetic bases to beauty therapy treatments. And then the work was extended by Madame Marguerite Maury. So in 1984, she wrote a book and studied all about aromatherapy, and really a lot of the things that we do and study are based on what she actually put together. And that brings us up to current day, with obviously a lot of people commenting on her studies in particular. So moving into the things you've got to think about before you actually treat somebody with aromatherapy oils are things like getting quite a lot of information from somebody, particularly around something called contraindications. And this is really, really important, because if people are suffering from chronic conditions or general conditions which are actually becoming quite commonplace, things like diabetes, you need to be very careful what oils you can actually put on the skin. And obviously, hopefully common sense prevails as well at certain times. If people have got open scratches, things like that, the one thing you don't want to do is put something toxic onto the skin, so you need to be very cautious there. So there, put my glasses back on so I can actually see. Just trying to find my list of oils that could cause a little bit of a problem. So common oils which might cause a little bit of a reaction, and there's some surprises ones in here which you need to be a little bit cautious of. So I've got a list here, but one of them, for example, is one that quite a few people use, which is tea tree oil. So the problem with tea tree is that you can get sensitization from it. So you could get slight redness or rashes on the skin if you put too much on there. So you might want to just test a very small part, or sometimes one of the easiest ways of testing is to put it on a little plaster. Put a couple of drops and put it on an area that you can't really see, and just keep an eye on it. And obviously say to the person that's doing this, if they feel the slightest irritation or anything like that, that they actually have to stop with that. But there are some oils, believe it or not, and I'm just going to look up the words for this because they're very strange words that you don't normally come across. So it's known as acute toxicity, and it refers to really dangerous oils that if you're given in high dosage, so if you've got aromatherapy oil bottles just lying around, and somebody, I mean, these have got very good safety locks, they're really good, but if somebody managed to get into that, and I'm thinking in particular maybe about young children or actually elderly people as well, thinking, oh, this looks really good, I'll play with it, and they start putting it towards their mouth. Some of these oils are so toxic that they could really cause bad illness, what we call chronic toxicity, and there are quite a few here which are well known. You've got things like arnica and aniseed, camphor, we've got wintergreen and wormwood there as well, so really watch out for that. You need to be very careful. The other category of people that need to be aware of this is people who are pregnant. Essential oils in pregnancy. There are some that are safe and that can be diluted in things like baths. So you've got things like neroli, rose, sandalwood, lovely ones, ylang ylang, that you can use, but probably others need to be kept away. So if in doubt, always ask somebody that's qualified as an aromatherapist as to whether or not they could use their oils in your particular circumstance. But as I said, there's lots of general contraindications that you need to be very wary of and take on board. So as well as the open wounds, it's things, the diabetes, epilepsy, heart conditions, because the oils, they're much stronger than people realise, I think is the warning sign there. But they're so beautiful. This is why I find oils so fascinating, because on the one hand I'm giving you loads of warning, but actually the whole idea of this is health and well-being, and if used correctly in the right amounts. Any of you that saw the original consultation that I did with Melissa, I was measuring out really carefully the base oil and the different oils. The blend actually is very individual, and that takes a long time to learn. But when you get it right, it's absolutely wonderful. When you start smelling, and we'll go into this, a top, middle and base note that blends well with a base oil, it's so wonderful. And you can almost feel like yourself healing as the oil's being applied. So if you get it right, it's really, really good. Right, I'm just going to talk about something that some people might find a little bit tedious, but actually to understand how aromatherapy works, you've got to understand a little bit about this process. So this is the methods of extraction, and I'm only just going to cover it very briefly because the chemistry and the process is not something that everybody is interested in. So all I want to do is highlight that there are so many different ways of extracting the oil from particular plants, whether they're fresh or dried. So the first one is steam distillation, where you can, where the vapour from the oil is actually distilled. Another one is expression, where the method used for citrus oils is separates the peels so that it's squeezed and you get the oil that way. So that's quite an interesting one. Another one, love the names of some of these, supercritical carbon dioxide extraction, and you can imagine that's quite a detailed one, so we're not going to go into detail, but it is one of the more modern ways of extracting oil from aromatic plants. You've got the phytonic process as well, which is quite a recent one. It uses what they call much more environmentally friendly solvents to extract the oils from plants. So that's a new one. And this last one, which is hydro diffusion or percolation. And that's to do with carbon dioxide extraction. So if any of you want to study that in detail, I find it quite interesting, but I know it's very heavy on the scientific level, so we'll not do that. So I've talked for quite a while now, so what I thought is I'd share some other different interesting tools that I found really useful when I was studying. And there's these lovely little things called, well, one is an aromatherapy decoder, which I used. And this basically is a lovely wheel chart which takes each of the oils and it shows you in quite a bit of detail in actually a really precise way. I mean, you wouldn't think this is so full of information. It is incredible on around about 30 oils. And if we just take, for example, lemon here, which is an interesting oil, which I have somewhere. Here we go. I have this one, lemon. And lemon you do have to be quite cautious with, but the wheel here just explains what it's for. Even they've got one suggestion here is for bleeding gums, which you wouldn't have thought about using that for. And it also will give you the properties that it has, how to use it, you know, what not to use it in, the oils that it's best blended with. So you've got ylang ylang tea tree in this instance. It's even got the Latin name for those of you that really are interested, but please don't ask me to pronounce that because I have no idea. Citrus limonum. There we go. And a warning, which is can cause irritation to sensitive skin. Please dilute. So it's fascinating, and literally you just turn the wheel to the different oils and it will give you the background information in quite a concise and precise way, which I thought was totally fascinating when I first studied this. It was actually one of my fellow students that introduced me to these, who'd been doing her studies a little bit longer, and I was very, very grateful and managed to get hold of one there. So that's called an aromatherapy decoder. I've no idea if they're still around, but as I said, this is very old, but really useful. So that's one really good tool there. Let me just put my lemon back. So to continue with my show and tell from my study days, in contrast to the aromatherapy decoder, we've now got the aromatherapy lexicon, which looks at the oils in a different way. In other words, the wheel centres around what it is that you're trying to look at in terms of the well-being of the individual, and it tells you which oils are best to use to look at. For example, here we've got fatigue. So if you go to that section, so fatigue, it will tell you which oils are best to use there. In this case, for example, we've got peppermint, which I also happen to have here. So peppermint for fatigue, which is a nice one, and maybe add that into your blend if, you know, either you've got fatigue or your client is coming in with fatigue. Looking at the wheel here, the lexicon as they call it, peppermint is included in that, and you think, oh, instantly, and eventually you get to start thinking about the oils connected to those particular ailments or elements of well-being that you're trying to enhance. And I found these very, very useful when I was first going into the depths of looking at aromatherapy, and they're just another tool that makes it really, really helpful. Okay, and the one thing that we're going to look at after this is look at, I keep mentioning this, I keep mentioning base, middle and top notes. So once you've studied this, that is something that we'll talk about in a bit more detail, because the base, middle and top blend of your aromatherapy oils lies at the heart of your blend. So we're going to move on to that. What I want to talk to you now is about the notes. So the notes of an aromatherapy oil, when you blend them together, that forms like the heart of the blend. So understanding where the oils fit and why really makes the blend work for the individual, depending on what they need. So I'm just going to read through a summary of the what makes like a top note, a middle note and a base note. So if I start with top notes, they have sharp and immediate aromas, and when you hold a top note under your nose, you'll get that. It absorbs quickly into the skin. It evaporates very quickly. It originates from citrus plants and herbs, so a lot of them will be citrus based and plant based, and they're quite stimulating. So they're the ones that you're going to smell first as well. You always smell that top note first. The middle note, I always think of the middle note as like the balance between the top and the base. The middle note, if you didn't have that middle note in there, it wouldn't come across as being really balanced. So the aroma is more flowery. It evaporates moderately. It absorbs into the skin moderately as well. It originates from flowers and herbs generally. It's got a slightly calming effect, but is generally, as I said, bringing that sort of balance together between the top note. And then the last note is this base note. The evaporation on the base note is really quite slow and measured. The aroma is often much heavier, quite floral in its tendency. It's where you've almost got, I suppose, the spicy and the woody ones. And it absorbs into the skin quite slowly as well. Generally quite relaxing for your mind and your body, and they are the thickest of the oils in comparison to the others. So when you first smell a blend, you'll smell, as I said, the top note, followed by the middle note and then the base note. And obviously what I'm going to do once I talk to you about the carrier oils and the base oils is I'm going to do a blend, an example blend for you. So I'm going to mix all the oils that I'm going to be talking about with the base oils that we'll touch on now. So they're known as generically as carrier oils, vegetable oils or base oils, and you get lots of different types. So I'm just going to run through some of them. You've got an apricot kernel oil, which is very good for things like facials. And with a lot of these oils, there is something you've got to be very aware of. These base oils actually have a shelf life. So this one in particular for apricot is one of the longest ones. It's 2 years. Whereas something like avocado oil, which I happen to have here as a base oil, which we're going to use probably in a moment, it only lasts for a year. So you have to really think about what you're going to use. So avocado produced from dried fruit, cold pressed avocado is it's got a greeny tone to it, so it can be quite cloudy as well, but rich in certain types of vitamins such as vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E. So really good on dry or mature skins. But obviously, you just need to be careful the actual amount that you're using. Got loads of notes. I've obviously used this one quite a lot when I was studying because I've got my little notes scribbled here. Okay, you've got calendula oil, extracted through maceration from flowers such as marigolds, and it's an anti-inflammatory, so shelf life of only 1 year. And coconut oil, which many of us do know when we come across you can find that in lots of cosmetic blends in particular, and coconut oil these days is used as a versatile, even a cooking product, but it's actually a really good carrier oil as well. It can be used as even a deodorizer, but it's particularly good for particularly dry skins. And I think that's people are quite knowledgeable about that one. You've got evening primrose oil, suitable for dry skins, but evening primrose oil only has a very short shelf life, so and it's quite expensive. So just watch that one if you really need to purchase it, if you're going to literally use it up quite quickly. Grapeseed oil as well, which has a shelf life of 1 year. It's quite yellowy, but it's a really good emollient for the skin. Olive oil, which we're all familiar with, is actually, if you're really stuck and you haven't got one of these slightly unusual base oils, then you can actually use olive oil. Really good for blending, and it has a rich texture which you can use. What else have we got? We've got wheat germ, which I have here. I have a large bottle because I have been using that quite a lot. Really good carrier oil. So this is why I've probably bought a slightly bigger bottle. Has got a shelf life of 2 years. It contains proteins and vitamins, particularly vitamin E. So very good for clients that might be prone to allergies. So that's a really good one to use there. And last one is sweet almond, which I've got here, which is actually a brand new bottle. I've not actually used that one yet. So sweet almond oil, so I'm looking forward to using that. Might give that a try. One of the most popular carrier oils. The only thing is, obviously, you have got to be just a little bit careful. Anything with nuts in, obviously be aware that people might have allergies. So be careful on that. But it is suitable for all types of skins. Especially dry, aging or inflamed skin. So it does help use that as a base oil. And that's about all of them. I think I've missed out peach kernel, which again is one for 2 years that is particularly for dry skin. So that's all of the ones that I studied anyway, and I have used most of them. There's one that's not on this list, which is jojoba. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I think I added that in when I was studying. I added that in because I found it quite nice. That's all the base oils covered. So now I'm going to move to actually blending the oil. Okay, thank you for being patient and listening to my history of aromatherapy. And hopefully you've caught some of the enthusiasm that I still have many years later. So the final part of this, after hearing a little bit more background about aromatherapy, is actually putting that final blend together. So what I thought I'd do is look at some of the tools that I need and bring those together first. So the first thing you need is obviously your base oil. And I mentioned to you that I've got a new bottle of sweet almond, so we will open that shortly. And then I need my little mixing jug. And then I'm just going to use this because the oils can be very sticky, and just so that it doesn't spoil anything that you've got, you might want to pop the oil and the little jug into here. And then I'm just going to pour in, brand new bottle opening, and measure out so that I can mix in the oils. So there's your base oil, and obviously the base oil is measured on what you're actually using it for. So obviously this is just as a little test, but if you're doing, say, a back massage, obviously you would use much less. If you're doing a full body, you would use more. So what I thought we'd do is look at my old guidance on which oils blend much better together. So I've got my old chart list here, which has the ailments running along here, and then the different types of notes, different types of oils along here, and what is a top, middle and base note. So one of the things I thought we would look at is headaches, and choose oils that fit in nicely. So you're looking for a top, middle and base note that you can pull out that will help look at relieving headaches for either yourself or your client. One of the oils that is recommended is eucalyptus. So eucalyptus is your top oil. So that's going to be the one that you smell first, if you remember what I was talking about earlier. So that's going to be your top oil. And then another one that is recommended is rosemary, which is like, you remember I talked about the middle note to help the two blend together. And then the base one is rose. There, try and put that in the middle so that we know. And you literally, just so that you get a feel for the blend, I'm going to just put, oh, another one that hasn't been opened. Be patient with some of these oils. It's not going to come out now. There we go. So that's your eucalyptus top note. So that's the note that you're going to smell first. And what did I say was the... So rosemary was the middle note, so let's put that in next. So that's your middle note. And then we've got the rose, which is the base note going in. Rose always takes ages to come out. So that's rose going in. Now rose always takes a bit of time to come out, so be patient with that one. And then I'm just going to grab my blender and blend that together. Okay, and that gives you your blend. And you can see, you can smell that it's a wonderful blend. And for headaches, actually, I can feel that working on me as well. So you really smell the eucalyptus first, then in the background I can smell that sort of herby smell of the rosemary. And then finally, the rose, it comes and hits you. It's quite a thick, and you can see when rose comes out, it's quite yellow and thick and viscose. So you can smell that. So it's almost like you can smell the three oils in order. If I had more time, I'd talk to you about the how we do that and how we smell, but maybe we'll leave that for another day. But that's lovely, lovely blend. So that is how we would blend. Let's take my glasses off, pop my props away here. But hopefully you can see it takes quite a lot of studying, quite a lot of research, quite a lot of knowledge to actually blend that small blend that you've got there. But if you get it right, it is so fantastic. And this is why being an aromatherapist is so important in terms of studying correctly. That blend is perfect for somebody who's suffering from headaches at the moment, which is very different to maybe buying something that is very generic, which there's nothing wrong with getting some a generic blend if it helps you, but this one is specifically, so if you've got somebody who's suffering from headaches, this will make them feel better. And you can tell those oils are quite powerful, and that blend will really, really help. Thank you for listening to me really talking about this. As you can see, I have total fascination for this. I'm fascinated once again. Revisiting this many years later, I'm still just as fascinated, and it's brought it all back to me. So thank you so much for listening.